Very quick background on the History Centre. For those of you who aren't aware, it's a partnership between the university and the city. So we have a merged front of house service, website, catalogue, but separate custodianship of archives behind the scenes, a single audience development programme, an education programme, and kind of as a sideline to that, the university staff specifically have a role in supporting learning and teaching at the university. And this is all part of our vision and mission, which you can see on the History Centre website.
So the education programme we have at the History Centre is run by me. I'm the education officer, and it's HLF funded. And we cover everything from primary, sometimes even early years, if we're feeling very brave, right up to GCSE, A-level, and that's where the crossover with the university work comes in. So we have links with local schools and with individual teachers, and we deliver set sessions. I've actually done a similar thing with the schools leaflets in that most of them are just on this table here. I wasn't sure whether everybody would want to take one away with them, but there are quite a few copies.
And then within the university team, and these activities are specifically not funded by HLF as core institutional activities. As I said, we support learning and teaching for undergraduates and postgraduates, and we're also involved in sort of skills development and providing work experience as well.
So just to give you a bit of a context and background to education as it is in Hull, and I suppose we tried to put a super positive spin on it because, to be quite honest, Hull doesn't end up at the top of any league tables particularly. But there is a strong tradition of local undergraduates staying in the city, so there is really strong links with the university. And there is locally an environment of creativity and collaboration, so there is an awful lot going on in the city itself. There are 99 schools with 36,000 pupils, and I'm proud to say that 5,000 pupils have visited the Hull History Centre since we opened 4 years ago. We used the local Hull Museums Education Service kind of as a model that we based our work on, but obviously we had to adapt it quite a bit for archives and local studies material.
Now I'll talk about the origins of Hull History Partnership, which was formed in 2009 by Dr. Amanda Capern from the Department of History. Before she joined the History Department, she worked in the archives for a couple of years. This is in the 1990s, I think. And she was doing collection level descriptions for some of our big collections. And that's made her a really strong advocate for the benefit of knowing about archives, archivists, how archives work, if you're going to do anything with history, if you're going to, if you're doing a history degree, if you're then going on to do any sort of career that involves history. And she's also interested in the transition from schools to universities. So those kind of two things came together as an idea for this partnership. She initially applied for HEA funding, and then that applied for a year, and then we had a second year of funding from Ferrens Trust, which is a local educational trust. Both of those sets of funding gave us 6 hours a week as an admin assistant, so they're quite small funding bids, and that admin support was really, really necessary. And there's a couple of places where you can find it on the website, and this gives us the aims and objectives. I've put URLs in the handouts as well, if you need them. And it's based on making a virtual circle out of a triangle, is the easiest way to say it. So between the department, the History Centre, and schools and colleges in the city and in the region. And it was built into the History Department's kind of strategic plan for sort of 2009 to 2012. So if I take each one of the sides of the triangle in turn, there's obviously close links already between the History Department and the History Centre. We provide careers advice to students, we contribute to modules, undergraduate and postgraduate teaching and research modules. Students use our materials for dissertations. We also have, before the partnership, we have sort of informal work experience placements and voluntary placements for students, and we try to help our kind of homegrown students in particular. And the idea of the History Department was kind of build on this link to use archives as a context for teaching and for employability skills, and to create a framework for all of that. So it was really done in a structured way. Second side of the triangle is between the history department and schools and colleges. As Esther says, there's a lot of local students come to Hull. Quite often they might stay on and do teacher training, and quite a few of them stay in the region to teach. So we've got a kind of personal triangle going already. And also the history tutors at the university have an interest in widening participation, and as I said, in this transition, knowing more about what sixth formers are taught and how they're taught, and the transition from schools to universities. And the third side of the triangle is first.
So unlike museums, and I come from a museums background as well, museums probably get far more primary schools visiting them than secondary schools, and that's what I expected, and that isn't the case at all. I think we have probably 55% of the students that visit us are secondary. So it was quite nice to build that into the history partnership, because that was kind of an immediate progression into A-level and into college and university life.
Okay. So the first initiative within the partnership was a set of trial internships. And these were trials really for having internships within a module. We sort of had 6 guinea pigs, and we gave them a stipend, and it was a competitive process, so they had to apply and then say why they wanted to do this internship. They had to commit to between 25 and 30 hours of work over the course of the year, doing different projects, and they knew they were guinea pigs, so we kind of asked them at the end, how was this for you, and we used it as an evaluation exercise. And these are our 6 guinea pigs, and then Dr. Cookry is the person on the far left. And second from the right is our admin assistant, who was a Hull student, Hull graduate, so very homegrown. And these were the kind of types of projects they undertook. So 2 of them did cataloguing. One of them produced an education session based on recipes and cookery. Another one did a research project about the archives relating to women. And one of the others did a sort of education resource about Maister House, which is a historic house in the High Street. Second activity at the same time was a round table meeting in January 2011, where we had teachers from different schools come to the History Centre to sort of talk to them about what they were interested in and how we could collaborate. That's been one of the hardest things, I think, is actually getting a bunch of teachers together at the same time in the same place. It's very, very difficult. And the things that came out from that discussion were they were interested again in the transition from school to university, in having student placements for their pupils or for students in their schools, and the idea of can we have students mentoring sixth formers. And that led to us holding a pre-UCAS day for students who were thinking about going to university, thinking about doing history. And there's a programme for the day in the handouts, because it was going to take too long to tell you what we did. But it was a full day, quite immersive, and it was as a taster of what it was going to be like being at a university, using a library, using archives, and doing history. And it was very popular, quite well attended, and we repeated it a year later. It was a lot of work, but and hard work during the day, but it was successful. And then academic year 2011-12, having trialled the internships, that led to a new second year, long, thin, so over 2 semesters, undergraduate module, applied history, which is sort of 2 sides really. Partly it's about finding out about the discipline of history, how it's used in society, how society acquires memory and history, and how it uses heritage, and also getting the students to think about career planning, what you can do with a history degree, gaining transferable skills, personal reflection, career planning, and portfolios. So there was a lot to cover in that one module. We had 18 students. It was oversubscribed, but we only had capacity for 18. And the internships were in the first semester, and again, they were 5 full days. So again, about sort of 25 hours work. Timetabling that was a challenge. Working on either archives, collections, management, cataloguing, teaching, and Esther will talk about that in a minute, or research work with a sort of a client brief. And that's one of the interns there.
Right. So the first, going back a little bit, the first The first time that we had the students, we had the learning journey. It was about Maister House and the Victorian cookery session, and that actually took place in school. We were originally going to have it at Hull College and use some of their catering facilities, and it just didn't work with trying to find free timetable time at Hull College and for the primary school and get everybody together at once. I don't know whether anybody's familiar with My Learning. It's something that was set up by the MLA, and it's a website that teachers can use to download resources, and it's a good way to publicise your organisation as well. This is the worksheet that they used with the pupils. It was really basic. It was Year 2 pupils, and they had a character. They had living history characters, Lady Hotham and her maid. I think she was her maid or a housekeeper. And they worked with copies of documents, and they made actual biscuits, which nobody ever gave me any of. I wasn't there. Yeah, not bitter. The second time we had the teaching internships, Judy was saying that it had 18 people on that module, and it was a lot. So the day that they were coming in, I had 2 were working separately on 2 different online resources. There were 2 pairs working on different ones that they wanted to deliver to schools, and had another one who wasn't really sure what he was doing, and helped me with sessions and with session planning, and that was a lot to be happening at once. This is just to give you an example of how we tried to make sure that they got skills to do with teaching from this as well. So this is an example of the session plan for Humber Bridge learning journey, but I just love that photo at the bottom of the man pretending to give his towel when there isn't one. Just any excuse to put that in. It's me. This is Ashley and Nick delivering their session to schools. They were incredibly confident, these two. Looked very dapper on that day as well. But the lady in the foreground is a teacher at a primary school that's become a really big advocate of the history partnership, and they're coming again in October, so they've become big fans. And that's a bit more from their session. So it was kind of a detective agency investigation. This was one of the other sessions. This was to do with the Diamond Jubilee and looking back at Victoria's Jubilee. And we've got resources online if anybody wants to have a look at those.
Okay. The second year that we ran the Applied History module, which was last academic year, we only had 12 students. That was more manageable than 18. And the teaching strand was done slightly differently. So we actually organised placements, or the admin person organised placements directly in schools. We thought that was going to be much more sustainable and an easier use of resources to have the students directly in schools, and that was a great demand for that kind of placement as well within the department. And we kept the research strand and the archive strand, and then we had a 4th strand which was event planning, and the outcome and the kind of purpose of that 4th strand, which just one student did, was a showcase day in February. Which was attended by the university tutors from history, students from applied history, history teachers, 6th form students, archivists, and Esther and I. And it was a full day. The applied history students presented what they'd been doing within their internships. We talked about archives, and then we had 2 split sessions, and again the timetable for the days in the handouts. So we had teachers and history tutors, and then Esther and I talking. And Esther, was in the session with students and 6th formers, because we wanted to get the students and 6th formers together to talk about things between themselves.
I think we need to wind up, so I'm happy to talk to anybody about what the session that we did on the showcase day, but just to probably skip to impact. I think we've both been responsible for a couple of references for PGC or other MA courses. The pupils, we had really good feedback from the pupils, and there are some examples of that if anybody wants us to send them the PowerPoint presentation. So the impact on us was quite positive. We got catalogues out of it. As Judy will say, we got lesson plans and resources. Interest from other universities about a similar programme.
And things for the future, I'll just fast forward to the future. Applied history isn't running this year because the tutor's on research leave, so we've got to work out how to make that sort of team taught or sustainable. But we're thinking about other possibilities and things like the mentoring scheme and possibly a local history prize for sixth form students that's judged through the university, and lots of other ideas that hopefully at some point we'll have time to put in place. So a very quick whiz through. Thank you very much.